We are so thrilled because we have Dr. Doreen Grampichet with us, and joining us in the studio now is Julie Matthews from Nourishing Hope. This is an awesome moment for autism parents everywhere because we have an expert in the field of ABA and we have an expert in nutrition. Your Nourishing Hope is your site and your book, and you are a wonderful, wonderful resource for all things nutritional.
Thank you.
So we welcome you here to the show. It's the first time having you live in the studio.
Yes.
We had you Skype in before.
Yeah, we're so thrilled to have you here, Julie. I wish I could keep you for days and have all my kids see you while you're here.
I have a chain that I'm going to chain her to the desk. We're going to get her cooking while she's
well,
here.
I mean, I'm hoping that we will actually be able to bring Julie back down and have parents consult with her here because it's such a huge resource.
That would be great.
It would be amazing. And the two of you are not strangers to each other. In fact, you've been working on a project together. Tell us what the A-Team is.
A-Team, I guess, stands for Autism Team, the A Autism Team. And it's a project that where we're looking at the child from all different dimensions. So we will look at different children, and Julie will deal with all of their nutritional issues. I will deal with all of their behavioral issues or ABA, and then we also have a physician. We've worked together with Dr. Arthur Kriegsman, and he is a pediatrician and also a gastroenterologist, and so he will do all the medical interventions. So our goal is to basically make sure that we have experts in all different areas doing a full, really multidisciplinary type of intervention and dealing with the child as a whole and taking care of all their issues.
Now, is this a center that you're starting, or is it a television show, or is it all of the above? What is the...
Do you want to go for that?
Sure. Well, we're hoping it will turn into a television show.
Okay.
Right.
So a weekly opportunity where somebody could tune in and see a family who has a child on the autism spectrum, and this A-Team swoops in. I think it's a great idea, but everyone is going to want it.
Right.
Right? It's really the ideal that every parent has been saying for a long time, and I love the idea that you're talking about bringing her here to consult with parents, because we all want that 360-degree approach.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And I mean, some of the kids that we've sort of worked on together, what the concept is to show the difference, how you when you do it multidisciplinary and how well the kids do or how much they benefit from each thing. And that's pretty important. One of my kids in Texas, in our Austin office, we were trying to begin intervention, and Julie went in and spent time and actually looked through all their foods. And this was, I think, a child that was chugging like a gallon of milk a day. Wow. It was pretty, and those types of changes make a huge difference for us, because our kids just are able, after they're on the right nutrition, not only do Sharon, I always say, like, it's so important to do the nutritional stuff because it really helps the child, first of all, gain nutrition, which half of our kids are not even getting nutrition to the brain due to tons of inflammation. But also, just because at that point the child wakes up, is able to pay attention, is able to learn faster, just so much better in our programs when the medical side of things is stable and the child's nutrition is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And since we have the two of you here together, let's talk a little bit about, so as an ABA expert, you see how awesome this can be and how helpful it can be if the proper nutrition is there. What do you see from your end, Julie?
Well, we really do see that multidisciplinary approach, and so we're really hoping to really change the face of autism and the possibilities for autism, and that that all of these interventions are important, and as a whole, like Doreen said, there's a big improvement. So I hear all the time parents, when we start a lot of times they'll have ABA on board, and then when we start the nutrition part, they will often not tell the therapists and just see what happens, because sometimes the parents are like, well, maybe I'm imagining it, so I'm just not going to say anything. And a lot of times the therapists say, really amazing, I don't know what you've been doing, but wow, flow, attention, language, all these different things can be pretty profound.
Yeah. And what do you guys say to, it seems like to me as a parent that for so long there were camps, you know, that, and there are still people, I will tell you that one of the reasons why we were so thrilled to be at CARD was because we didn't experience that. That if we said, okay, we're going to do the GFCF diet, and we heard, great.
Oh yeah.
Try that out, see if it makes a difference.
Right, and we try to encourage our folks, our parents, to do anything that they need to do medically and nutritionally. We ask a lot of questions about that. You know, talking about camps, I have to tell you honestly, I am on the very outside fringe of the field of ABA simply because I believe in the medical and the nutritional. I mean, there have been groups of other ABA providers who've complained about my association with physicians to our board and have said, you know, she's crazy. So I think that there is still some of that going on, and a lot of people feel that autism is about their expertise. Yeah. And it just isn't. You know, autism has a lot of different stuff going on. One of the reasons I'm very, it's extremely important for me that we have the nutritional and medical involvement, also the sensory, is because, you know, I've seen all through my career, all the way back to the 80s, I would say, I've seen so many kids that are so medically ill, just physically ill, and that sort of stuff is just overshadowed when they have a diagnosis of autism. And you know, the parents will come and say, oh yeah, I mean, he's learning, but he's so tired, he never sleeps at night. And I'm like, we gotta fix the sleep. Let's talk about that. You know? And sleep interacts with just digestion and nutritional value as well.
And you can imagine if you had some digestive disorder, if you were in discomfort, how could you possibly pay attention? You know, if any of us have the stomach flu or something, we're feeling terrible. We're not doing anything. Can you imagine you felt like that every day? How could you possibly pay attention and want to learn?
Absolutely. And I'm hoping we can move. The parents are crying out saying, let's not be in camps. Our kids are all individuals, and they need a lot of different things. Let's not be in camps. So I'm thrilled that the two of you are here. Are you still experiencing the camps to some degree, Julie?
Well, yes, but I'm just really enthused that a lot of people aren't. There is no reason for that. There's no reason to say this way works and that way doesn't. I mean, there's truth in everything. Every way works differently or a different amount for different people. So let's employ all of them in the amounts that each person needs. And why argue and fight? It's not helping anybody.
Exactly. We had somebody email in a question, and I saved it to talk about it with both of you so that we can see how both of you can add to this question, and then maybe we'll have time to talk about the yeast question we had as well. Hi, Mrs. Shannon. My son does not sit still to eat. He likes to wander around and play or do something. He does not focus on eating. Isn't that very common for autistic children? If given something for him to hold and play at the table, he does so and then does not run around. When he's focused on playing, not the food, he sat at the table. It was good, but not so much with the food, she said. Is there anything I can do? Every meal is a battle time. I take care of 2 kids by myself. And I know in your, you have a wonderful flyer that we're going to feature again today on the Facebook with your permission, where you talk about when food is an issue and when you have picky eaters and difficult eaters. And I know you talk about it from a behavioral standpoint. So let's hear from both of you. What kinds of things would you suggest for this parent?
Well, I mean, I would actually, working together with Julie on this, I would take care of the behavioral techniques that we would need to implement in order to help the child stay seated. So that's very easy. I mean, you already have a technique in place where if the child's holding something, they might actually stay seated. But I would then defer to Julie and ask, you know, I'm sure she would want to do a whole evaluation of what it is he's eating and how to broaden the diet. And I'd want to make sure if I'm behaviorally teaching this child to sit down and eat, that they're eating the right stuff.
Exactly. So for me, I would be looking at, well, are there any foods that could be creating hyperactivity or some inability to sit down?
There you go.
And then, you know, what foods are they eating? What does their diet look like? Are there any of those components that either can make it healthier for them or, you know, could play a role in this? And then, just like Doreen said, then when we are going to work on the skills to get them to sit down and eat, we might as well choose really good, healthy foods and not foods that are going to be contributing more to the problem.
Absolutely. And we had a question earlier about yeast and about children getting the teehees and getting to the point where they're hilarity. And we talked a little bit about that it could be yeast, and we said, let's talk to Julie about this as well. What kinds of things do you see with children when they're yeast reactive and overgrown yeast, and when you were mentioning die-off?
Well, I mean, I was just saying that there are certain things that are confusing to parents because you know, you have to identify, is it actually a behavioral thing or is it something that's biochemical?
Right.
And so I was saying most of the time when I've seen kids that have these phases where they're just giggling for no reason and you can't identify any kind of behavioral antecedent to it or setting antecedent or anything like that, then it might be potentially something related to yeast or yeast die-off. And then I suggested, since you're going to be here, have you seen that with kids?
Absolutely. Some parents will say their child's almost drunk. Some of them will bump into furniture and things.
Too, right? Right.
And so if it is yeast, then looking at foods, getting rid of sugars and things that are going to feed that yeast can really make a difference. Now then the confusing part can be that sometimes when you start changing the diet in a healthier way and you get out the sugar, now the yeast might start dying, and there might be some behaviors that come along with that. So now where are they? Are they getting better? Are they getting worse? And so that can get a little complicated unless they're working with some people that can help them through that part.
Absolutely.
And how long do you think, Julie, when you see yeast die off, like how long do you recommend the parents stay? That, I suppose, stay and keep going.
Right.
I mean, I suppose that depends on the level of you know, fungal infection.
Yes. I think there's a few things to look at. One is make sure they're working with the doctor, make sure it is yeast, because it could be other things as well. And then just with in terms of like how long it takes for the diet and that sort of thing, that's all going to depend. And I tend not to be the kind that you know, kind of blames everything on die-off. Oh, just keep going. They feel terrible. That's a good sign.
Right.
I tend to be a little bit more, you know, if it's moderate and it goes away fairly quickly, then, you know, not a big deal, probably just keep going. But if it seems like things have really gone in the wrong direction, I think it's always good to get some support, whether it's medical or what have you, to make sure it's the right treatment or remedy or approach for them, and that there isn't something else going on. You know, sometimes you get yeast under control and Clostridia might climb up. So we don't want to make assumptions. That's why it's really important to be working with a doctor so that they're making sure that they're looking at all of those different factors. And we're not oversimplifying it, but a lot of times there are some pretty common things that we see over and over again, like yeast and working with taking sugar out and those sort of basic. I mean, taking sugar out's great for everybody. There's really no downside to that.
That's
Truly, absolutely.
How do you? I have so many questions.
No, go ahead.
Julie. I'm just gonna jump in.
This is great.
How do you feel about sort of the red food coloring that a lot of people?
Terrible. All of the dyes. In fact, one of the things about sitting still we were talking about earlier, it could be also the dyes and the artificial things.
We mentioned that too.
Those to me are probably one of the worst offenders and one of the easiest things to get rid of.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely.
Julie, do you work with just all physicians, pediatricians, and so on, or do you mostly, when you're working with together side by side with a physician, is it one of the sort of team of doctors that have been trained by, let's say, ARI or MAPS or something, or do you work with just all general physicians as well?
Well, I can work with any client who wants me to interface with their physician. Typically, the ones that have been trained by ARI or MAPS or something like that are more likely the ones that have found me, the more open-minded one. They have someone on their team that they know that can help them. So I much more often work with somebody like that. But that doesn't mean that if they have a kind of regular pediatrician but that's open-minded, that we can definitely
do that.
Work together.
I'm just thinking that in general, like with nutrition, I mean, you're an expert with nutrition, and also particularly with autism, which really has its own issues and it's very unique issues that most people don't really know about. And I have to say that, you know, I have worked with a lot of nutritionists as well, but some of my most difficult kids that you've also worked with have had the most significant changes. I have a huge amount of respect for what you personally choose to do with our kids, because I've had that experience with like some of our kids that we work with that you and I would both say extremely difficult or severely affected child. You've made a huge impact on some of my kids. I appreciate that.
Hear.
But I'm just thinking that as a whole, you know, we all have become so much more aware of nutrition, and just even outside of autism, like the whole, everybody's aware of how bad our food is, and you know, there's more and more people just heading towards not only organic foods, but like now farmed foods or just
biodynamic is the new word I'm hearing over and over again. Very exciting.
So, you know, so I was hoping that with that, there would be more and more physicians open to all the stuff that you actually teach the families, because I think receiving nutritional feedback is something everybody wants.
Absolutely.
I want, you know?
Right.
And if we don't want it, we should.